Your Blake Point Shop Jewels Show.
Hi, it's Joe from Beauty School, and today I'm going to be taking you through my top 10 records from 2023. I feel like I have to stress though that these are my top 10 records from 2023 and mine alone. I say this because I know that I'll take some heat from the rest of the guys in the band, particularly from Jordan for the inclusion/exclusion of certain records from this list. But fuck Jordan. Number 10 is Fireworks, Higher Lonely Power. Fireworks have been one of my favourite bands since I first heard Gospel, which was back in 2011, I think. And I still think that that is probably the best pop punk record ever written. And then they did Oh Common Life in 2014, which was a really good album as well. And then they just disappeared for 9 years. But last year they returned with a brand new album and a brand new sound, Higher Lonely Power. And I have to say that the production on this record kind of surprised me when the album first came out. When I think about the Fireworks sound, particularly on the last two albums, it was so percussive. The guitars were so rhythmic and angular. The bass was really locked in with the drums, and the production was very clean. And that style of record is kind of what shone a light on the writing style of Fireworks. But this latest album is kind of the opposite of that. It is really like flowy, and there's a lot of distortion on it, and things are washed in reverb, and it makes the whole record just kind of sound like this wall of noise. And it did take me a while to adjust to that when the album first came out, but it's not a bad thing. It's just different. It's just not what I expected from Fireworks. The songwriting from them is as interesting as ever, and there's just moments on this album that take me places, man. It's definitely not the strongest Fireworks album in my opinion, but it feels like the most honest, the album that they just really wanted to write this time around. Do you come back for the fans, or do you come back for yourself? And I feel like they've just thought, fuck it, this is the album that we want to write, and we're going to write it. And if people like it, then great. I can really feel that on the record, and I like that about it. Number 9 is Koyo, Would You Miss It? I gotta admit, I've heard Koyo's name bouncing around for a while, but I just never really listened to them. So I only just started in the last year, and that's pretty much because they were forced down my neck by being in the van with the other guys in the band. Anybody in the band, including our manager, will tell you that I am sent music recommendations by them on the daily, and I just fucking ignore a lot of them. It's just because I'm just doing other things when they get sent to me most of the time. It's not like I'm like a hater of music or anything like that. And I always have these situations where I like fall in love with a band like 6 months after JD or Jordan have sent me a record to listen to, and I'll be like, oh fucking, have you all listened to this? How fucking good is this? And they're all like, yeah, we've listened to it. We told you to listen to it. Anyway, Koyo is one of those bands, particularly this record that came out last year. It's just a fucking excellent punk record. It is so good. Super easy to listen to back to front. It's got that thing where the songs are not trying to be too much, and therefore they're just great but simplistic. And I know that these comparisons get made a lot with Koyo because they've been on tour with I Am the Avalanche, and Vinny Caruana is on one of the tracks on the record, but that is the vibe that it gives off. It gives off that I Am the Avalanche style of song where you can almost tell that it was just written in a room on an acoustic guitar and then brought to a band, and they've just thickened it up. But yeah, I love that about this record. The guitars are super thick and chordy. It isn't like drenched in lead parts. It's got simplistic lead parts that add to the songs when they need to be there. And let's be honest, it's all about those fucking monstrous vocals. They are huge. His voice is a sensation. I know that I've already compared them to I Am the Avalanche, but it really reminds me of the Artist in the Ambulance record by Thrice. It's got all of those like punk elements, but also feels so heavy at the same time. It's maybe not quite as heavy in parts as the Artist in the Ambulance, but it really has that vibe for me. And also some of the vocal melodies themselves are just reminiscent of that era of music. 8 is Sleep Token, Take Me Back to Eden. I mean, what can you fucking say about this band? They've just blown up so much this year. As a singer, you cannot not appreciate this guy's voice. The twist of genres on this record, Is it a metal record? Is it a pop record? Is it an R&B record? I've always been a fan of that sort of thing. But I think what I like most about this record is now that the record has been such a success, I feel like it's easy to forget just how much of a risk it was putting this record out in the first place. Before this record, it wasn't really like anything else in the sphere. I mean, I know we have like the Bring Me the Horizons and so on that kind of have been melding pop and rock music together for some time. But Sleep Token just kind of pushed the boundaries further on everything for me. Like, the heavy parts on this record are super heavy. When Sleep Token do heavy, it's really, really heavy. But then when they introduce the pop elements or the R&B elements or like the trap elements into the record, it is like so far down that avenue as well. And to bring them together and make it work, it's like, it's a risk, because the fans that like you because you're heavy, you run the risk of turning them away from it, and you're doing that in order to try and gain fans who might like the other elements that you introduce on the record. I just think it was a risky album to take, but such a smart one to do. And now that it's such a big album, it feels so familiar. It almost feels like the album's been around forever. You don't often get albums that literally change the environment of music around them, and I think because of that, this will probably be a future classic. And the only reason that it's not higher on my list is because, generally speaking, it's not the music that I listen to on the daily. But yeah, what a fucking great album. 7 is the latest Citizen record, Calling the Dogs. This album really took me a minute. I said Fireworks took me a minute, but this one really took me a minute. When they pushed the lead single for this out, I remember me and JD were sat in my car and he showed me it, and I was like, this isn't Citizen. This is not a song by Citizen. Because I love Citizen, and the reason that I love Citizen is because for me, they just have that perfect blend of all of the genres that I'm interested in. They have the deep emo vibe going on. They have the grungy vibe. They're almost like scraping hardcore. They've even got like pop punk and pop rock elements in parts of, you know, on certain songs. But then on this record, not at all. They kind of just stripped away everything that made Citizen. And I feel like I'm shitting on it when I talk about it like this, but just let me get there. Apart from that one screamy line on the record, there is like no discernible heavy parts on this record. His voice barely cracks in the whole thing, and the deep guitar tones are gone. The production and music on it kind of sounds like The Hives or something. Calling the Dogs is an indie rock record, and like I said, it took a little while, but once you let it cook, it is a fucking brilliant indie rock record. It's just hook after hook after hook after hook. It has a charm that I've grown to love. I think it's just because it's easy listening. If I'm working on something or chilling out, it doesn't feel obtrusive for me to have this album playing, and those are the albums that I always kind of fall in love with because I just repeat listen to them so much. Like, it's an album that I will have on in the car when I'm driving somewhere. It kind of reminds me of Daryl Palumbo going from Glassjaw to Head Automatica if it was the same band. That's kind of how this feels. It's daring, people are not going to like it, but I do. 6 is Trophy Eyes, Suicide and Sunshine. I absolutely love Trophy Eyes. Chemical Miracle has to be up there as one of my favourite records. And then when they did the album after Chemical Miracle, I can't remember what it was called, but that album, it's kind of like they stepped away from the rawness that they had in Chemical Miracle and kind of went for this ambitious, big, anthemic sound on that record. And there were some really good songs on that album, don't get me wrong, but it just didn't hit like Chemical Miracle did. But the new Trophy Eyes album has both, and that is what I love about it so much. Like, it's got super hooky, super catchy parts, and then it's got really deep, painful parts that I had to listen to, but in the best way. And John's vocals are so good. I love how he switches between this like deep, buttery, smooth voice to then these really high, volatile, raw vocals that deliver the pain that is being sang about in the lyrics. I love that shit. There is nothing better in this world than music that makes you feel, and that's what Suicide and Sunshine gives me in spades. Number 5 is the Menzingers, Some of It Was True. The Menzingers are one of my favourite bands of all time. It's bar stool punk rock at its finest, and I love it. I honestly don't know if this band could release a bad record if they tried. When I was talking about Fireworks and talking about Citizen, about how the records that they delivered this year were kind of deviations from what you would expect out of those bands, this record by the Menzingers is exactly the opposite of that. It's kind of exactly everything that you would expect from a Menzingers record. And how can you not love that if you're a Menzingers fan? I feel like over the past 13 years or so, I've kind of grown up with the Menzingers. They're one of those bands that I just caught at the right time, and now every time they release something, it just sits right with me, because the subject matter of the records just kind of hits for me. It's like we are at similar stages and ages of our lives. I love this band and I love this record. Number 4 is Hot Mulligan, Why Would I Watch? This new record is so good. Tade's vocals are just so piercing and visceral, and they just go right through me, and I love it. Emo music is such a beautiful thing because it's the only place that you get hooks that are, you know, so hooky, so catchy, yet delivered with such intent. It's hard to decide whether you feel happy or sad listening to great emo music, and Hot Mulligan are probably doing it the best right now. Number 3 is Origami Angel, The Brightest Days. This is another band that I have been recommended 1,000 times and never listened to, and this went so far that I literally only listened to Origami Angel because we were on the same bill as them. We were playing a show together. And again, just to stress, it's nothing against these bands, it's just me. I just have this knack for listening to the same fucking albums that I've always listened to. Anyway, Origami Angel, played with them a couple times last year, saw them a couple times more, so I got to watch them quite a lot as a live band last year. They're just so good, and this new album, The Brightest Days, it's just a great record. It's a phenomenal album and such a good spot for me to jump in as an Origami Angel fan. And also, getting to see them so much live, I feel like it's been easier for me to see how their take on writing music translates live, because I think that is one of the special things about this band. They're such a interesting band, you know, there's only 2 of them. They have such an interesting take on the way that they write music. They have such a dynamic range in the types of songs that they write. Some of them sound like metal songs in parts, like especially with the drumming. Some of them sound like the twinkliest Midwest emo you've ever heard. Some of them sound like straight up pop punk songs, and a lot of the time it will kind of go through those motions in one song. You can have that all wrapped up in 3 minutes of an Origami Angel song, and it's that kind of makes you not know what's coming next, and that's really exciting to not just hear but also to see live. The drummer in this band is fucking insane. Sometimes there's blast beats going on, sometimes I'll find myself trying to count time signatures. The band is really something, and this album is really, really great. Number 2 is Enter Shikari, A Kiss for the Whole World. This band, man, I have been in awe of this band for like 16 years, since the beginning, since pre-Take to the Skies, and here we are all those years later, and I'm still mesmerized by the sheer courage of their writing style. You know, there's so many good bands out there, and we typically umbrella these under genres and then further split them down into smaller subgenres, but then every now and then you get a band that just kind of can't be placed anywhere. Shikari is one of those bands, because nobody else fucking sounds like Shikari, and nobody else has been able to replicate Shikari either. Deftones is kind of a good example of this. They're a band that people try to emulate but never really quite get it right. Deftones have a very signature sound. Shikari are similar, but I would say even more so, because nobody even attempts to sound like Enter Shikari. It's like the rest of the music world has gone, Shikari are so good at being Shikari, let's just leave them to be Shikari. And like every other album that they've put out, A Kiss for the Whole World is just, it's a proper journey. The hardcore elements, the dance and EDM elements, the triumphant orchestral parts, the hooks, the screams, the riffs. These albums have just got everything, and this one is absolutely no different. What a great fucking treat it was to get that this year. Number 1 is Life Under the Gun by Military Gun. This is my album of the year for 2023. What an amazing record. Where the fuck did this band come from? It's so simple in so many ways. It almost feels like some of these songs were written with the intention of sounding like not much time was spent on writing them. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe people who have heard the record will understand what I mean by that. To make songs that are that good, but that simple, but almost sound like so casually blasé, it's just, I don't know, people just can't do that. Like the Dookies of this world are a thing of the past, or they were until Life Under the Gun came out, because that's the kind of simplicity that I'm talking about. You listen to Life Under the Gun and you think, how the fuck has this not already been thought of? How has this song not existed until now? Anyway, yeah, I absolutely love this record. We had the pleasure of sharing a stage with them at 2000 Trees Festival. This band are just going to continue to get bigger and bigger, and I cannot wait to see what they do next and just watch them grow. It's amazing. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed my top 10 records of 2023. Let me know if you think that I missed any important records from last year, or just let me know what your top 10 were in the comments. Yeah.